there are very few animals that have made a comeback like the American bison has. Hi everyone, welcome to this channel. Today we're going to talk about the American bison and how it almost went extinct and then made a remarkable recovery. Once roaming in huge numbers across the Great Plains, the American bison is a massive mammal that was almost hunted to extinction in the 1800s for its hide and its meat. At one point, there were more than 60 million bison in North America. But by the early 1900s, there were only an estimated 2,000 left. That's a 95% decline in just over a century. And yet today, thanks to conservation efforts, there are more than 500,000 of them alive today. And that's a success story, especially considering that they were down to just 2,000. It really seems like a miracle, but it's not a miracle. It's science! And we can thank some pretty amazing people for the work that they did back in the 1900s that saved this magnificent animal from extinction. Today, most of the bison that you'll see are in zoos or in preserves. And while they're still considered a threatened species, they're doing much better than they were in the early 1900s. And their still hope that one day they may once again roam the Great Plains in huge numbers like they used to. But let's go back to the 1800s when things were looking pretty bleak for the American bison. During the 1800s, American bison were hunted almost to extinction for their hide and their meat. The bison hides were used to make leather goods such as belts, shoes, and jackets. And the meat was considered a delicacy by many people. In addition to being hunted for their hides and meat, bison were also killed for sport. Many hunters simply enjoyed the challenge of tracking and killing such a large animal. This, of course, took a toll on the bison population. And by the early 1900s, there were only an estimated 2,000 left in the entire United States. So how did we get from 60 million bison in the early 80s, 2,000 by the early 1900s? Well, it all has to do with humans. Humans hunted the bison for their food, for their hides, and they destroyed the habitat that the bison needed to survive. In the early 1900s, conservationists began to realize that if nothing was done to protect the remaining bison, they would soon be extinct. At this point, there were only an estimated 2,000 left in the entire United States. So conservationists began working to change this. They started by creating national parks and reserves where hunting was prohibited. They also began a public awareness campaign to try to get people to see how important the bison was to the ecosystem. And they started working with state and local governments to enforce laws protecting the bison from hunters. One of the most important things that conservationists did was to establish captive breeding programs for the bison. This was important because at this point, there was so few bison left in the wild that there was much opportunity for them to breed. So, by establishing captive breeding programs, conservationists were able to increase the number of bison significantly. Today, there are more than 500,000 bison alive, thanks to the hard work of conservationists in the early 1900s. While this is certainly a success story, it's important to remember that bison are still considered a threatened species. Habitat loss and poaching continue to be problems for bison, and it will take many years for their population to recover to what it was in the early 1800s. I think the American bison is an amazing animal. It's a symbol of the power and majesty of nature. And it's also a reminder of what can happen when humans destroy the habitat of other species. I hope that one day the bison will once again roam the Great Plains in huge numbers. And I hope that we can learn from our mistakes and protect the environment for future generations. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel.